The first thing you notice when you look on the outside of Elliot's DeLorean is the incredible attention to detail. Every wire, every clamp, every single item is exactly where it's supposed to be. It's truly breathtaking, and it doesn't stop there.
Now, one of the most interesting things about the movie car is that it didn't actually make any of the noises that you see in the movie. That was all added later in post-production. But this car... this car makes the noises.
And the inside is truly unbelievable. Once again, every single item is placed exactly where it should be, right down to the single smallest details you could possibly imagine. Even the buttons above the driver's seat are in Doc Brown's handwriting. I've been in a lot of cars made by a lot of companies that charge a lot of money, and I don't know that I've ever seen one so perfectly executed as this one, a guy made in his garage in Florida. Of course, there are a few highlights.
Okay, now no DeLorean time machine would be complete unless you could set the date to which you wanted to travel backwards or forward in time. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna set it to my birthday. This is so cool. Now ask any DeLorean owner what the #1 question they get when they're driving around is, and they'll tell you it's, does this thing have a flux capacitor? In this one, the answer is yes. And it works. In fact, everything that worked in the Back to the Future movie works in this car. You just flip this lever, and here it is.
Back to the outside, and especially the rear, which is probably the most interesting part of this car. There are a few highlights there also.
Now in back, of course, we have the plutonium chamber and all of its crazy wires and hoses and other details that really distinguish this thing from a regular DeLorean. Now, the top of the chamber itself is a hubcap from a Dodge Polara. That's not because the owner of this car couldn't find the real part and just cheaped out. In the movie, the actual top of the plutonium chamber is a hubcap from a Dodge Polara. And of course, if I want to put plutonium in the chamber, I can do that. Here is some plutonium and the chamber. Now we can travel in time.
Oh, and one more hilarious DeLorean Easter egg. The original DeLorean speedometer only went up to 85 miles an hour, but the movie car had to go 88. This was solved in the movie with a little sticker that brings the speedometer up to 95 miles an hour. And of course, this car has the same sticker.
And yes, there is even a hoverboard. Okay, so you've heard from the owner of this car and you've seen all of its crazy quirks and weird features, and now I'm gonna do one of the coolest things I think I've ever done. I'm going to drive the Back to the Future DeLorean on the road. Yes, I know it's not the same one, but nobody else knows that.
Okay, this is incredible. Oh, that's the clutch. Oh man. We'll be driving this thing for about 6 minutes until my legs give out. Oh, the clutch. Oh, why? Why did John DeLorean do this to us? I can't believe how hard it is to operate the transmission lever now with all this stuff in the middle. So they dealt with this in the movie car. They were like sticking their hand around. And then at my thumb, there's a phone keypad for the date I want to travel to. Yeah, it's not exactly the quickest car. They did make an automatic DeLorean, but it was a bit of a dog, more of a dog than this one was, which is hard to imagine. It's crazy how tight this cabin becomes with all this stuff in it. Without the stuff in it, it's actually fairly reasonable. The owner tells me John DeLorean was a tall guy himself. I'm 6'3", and so the car obviously was intended to fit someone of his height, and you can fit. The problem becomes when you start adding in all the Back to the Future stuff, then it becomes a little bit tighter. But there's even like a cutout in the top of the door so that your head fits. I have like an extra 2 inches of headroom, which is crazy. That's never the case in cars like this. There's nowhere you could possibly look at this car and not be reminded of what you're driving. It drives like an 80s exotic car. The clutch is beyond heavy, which is how they all were. The Countach clutch, the Testarossa clutch. The funny thing is, of course, we know it's nowhere near as fast as any of those vehicles.
You leaned on the door as we were taking the course.
Can I drop the hammer?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's see what happens. Oh, okay, this is third. That's probably the right gear. We're not really moving all that fast. I mean, it's not really slow, but it's not really fast under any circumstances. The novelty of this car is so much more about how it looks and everything like that. Its historical significance. You're definitely not driving it because you wanted something that is like an ultimate performer. It certainly is not that. We passed like 8 people and 7 of them have stared at us. If you notice the car, okay, this person's stopped in our blind spot here, which is probably a common occurrence.
Yeah.
If you notice the car, you're gonna, like, the only people who aren't looking at you are people who probably haven't noticed it yet. If you notice it, you're gonna be looking. Yeah. No, but this guy here, he built it himself. Because car people always want to talk about how many people notice their car.
Yeah.
But unless you get like this is a car people actually
No,
know.
you could pull up to a valet stand and there'll be a Lamborghini and they'll move it out of the way. And I didn't spend $250,000.
So here's what I've learned today. The DeLorean isn't exactly one of the fastest cars on the road or one of the most exciting, but when your DeLorean looks like the Back to the Future car, it can still be one of the most ridiculous automotive experiences you'll ever have. Damn it, no! That's the wrong movie!